Hello and welcome to What the Flick. I'm Matt, that's Alonso. Another kind of tepid weekend at the box office.
Yeah, it's as though a really big movie were coming out next week and nobody wanted to interfere with that.
You know, it's good to be Disney right now.
No kidding.
I mean, in general, right? But Coco, third week in a row, #1 at the box office. And Disaster Artist did well. It's up to, it expanded a wide release this weekend, hit #4.
Yeah, and for the only movie in the top 10 that is on under 1,000 screens, fewer than 1,000 screens, that's pretty impressive.
Which is pretty impressive, and also kind of a measure of how badly everything else is doing. Or, you know, I mean, Justice League was #2, but at less than $10 million. Now, granted, that's been out for a few weeks. But
yes, well, it's funny, I was at a thing this weekend where somebody said, here's the thing about Justice League, maybe it's not the movie's fault that we're in a world where a film that has made $600 million worldwide is considered a flop. Maybe there's something wrong with the industry.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, not that Justice League's off the hook, but come on.
Coco did another $18 million. That brings it up to $135 million. That's the third weekend in a row that it's taken the #1 spot. Justice League is #2. Wonder is at #3, which it's still doing really well.
That's crossed the 100 million mark, which I don't think a lot of people expected it would.
Yeah, which is solid. I know that book did really, really well. My kid went and saw it over the weekend. He was really excited about it.
Something tells me, like, if the success of Wonder means that 10-year-old lit is going to be the new YA.
Yeah, maybe.
Just a thought.
Maybe, yeah. The Wire A, younger.
There you go.
What else? Disaster Artist #4, Thor rounding out the top 5. That's now just over $300 million. So maybe we'll get another Thor movie.
You think? Maybe, yeah. And worth noting also, Murder on the Orient Express is already at 92. That's definitely gonna, I don't know about definitely, but I think it's got a good shot at crossing 100.
What did you think of Murder on the Orient Express?
I didn't love it. I think it's okay. It is solidly okay. But I think that and we've talked about this before, this is a movie that is definitely appealing to a demo that has been mostly ignored by the industry of late. Like
adults.
This is a movie that's drawing in the people that are usually staying home and watching shit on Netflix. So I think as much as I would have liked that movie to be better, I think it does at least bode well that that audience can still make a hit. And so, you know,
it feels like it's been a weird holiday season so far.
Like, a little bit.
Right? I feel like in years past, we've gotten, one after another blockbuster, and this one has been a little bit tepid.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think all the studios are releasing, as with each passing year, fewer and fewer films, which unfortunately means more eggs in fewer baskets, you know. Yeah, for Warner Brothers, this has clearly not been a great year, and I think Justice League is not capping things off. Do they have anything left this year?
Warner Brothers? That's a good question. We know Disney does.
Yes, they do.
Right? It's almost as if, as you said, there's some giant movie coming.
Millions of voices were crying out at once to see this movie. I, Tonya, we should mention, opened on 4 screens, but had a higher than $60,000 per screen average.
That's terrific.
Very impressive.
We talked about that on our review last week. That movie is amazing.
Yeah,
I really hope as it expands, people go and see it because it's terrific.
A really strong film. It is now officially an award season player with the Golden Globe nominations coming out. We'll be talking about that shortly. But yeah, definitely a lot of rabid interest on 4 screens. So I think as it expands, it's gonna, find itself. There's gonna be a lot more people wanting to check it out. Also in the top 10, just worth noting, Just Getting Started. A movie that was not screened for the press and in fact didn't even have Thursday night showings. Like they were really bearing this thing. It's the Ron Shelton comedy with Morgan Freeman and Tommy Lee Jones and Renee Russo. Still managed to squeak out a little over $3 million, which is not terrible. I mean, not a huge per screen average, but that I guess that's even older than at least the Orient Express audience. Like this is a really old audience. Which is too bad because Ron Shelton, I like as a writer-director. Bull Durham is still one of my favorite sports movies. I like Tin Cup a lot.
Tin Cup's a great movie.
And this is a movie that has, I can't remember if we talked about this last week, but like there's a deep bench of really cool character actors here. And it's like, oh God, I wish you were getting better offers than this.
We were talking about what's coming up the rest of the year, and Warner Brothers has a movie in 2 weeks, Father Figures, which I don't know is gonna do terrifically well, but there's a couple movies that I think they're not gonna necessarily beat out Star Wars, but they might bite a little bit out of that, especially knowing the audience. So Star Wars opens on this Friday, right?
Yes.
And it'll be #1, and it'll probably be #1 the next weekend.
Yes.
But Pitch Perfect 3 opens up, and you know, people may not realize that the Pitch Perfect movies do really well with this early teen demo that goes to the movies, both boys and girls. Like, they love those movies.
Interesting.
And that might bite into Star Wars. And the other one that might bite into Star Wars a little bit coming on the 20th is Jumanji.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 movies that weekend, right? Jumanji opens on the 20th, and then Pitch Perfect.
You know, look, counter programming, if you do it right, everybody wins.
Right.
And because, you know, yeah, Star Wars is going to be mammoth and gigantic, but not every single person in the movie going universe necessarily wants to go see it, at least not in the opening 2 weekends. So offer something else, you know.
Here's where I'm starting to think about this, though, is that, you know, similarly, I read a piece a while back. Somebody said, you know, we're not done with comic book movies yet and superhero movies because we haven't explored them the way that, say, Westerns got done, right? Like Westerns, you would see comedy and you'd see thrillers.
We haven't seen a
movies.
Psychological superhero movie, or at least
we haven't seen
not a big one.
Right, the serious character drama yet.
Yeah.
And I think that we may end up there with Star Wars, because you're gonna see all these different permutations, because as I'm looking at the rest of the things that are getting counter-programmed here, like between Pitch Perfect 3 and the great, well, all right, so next on the 22nd, you get Downsizing, right? Which is like the kind of thoughtful comedy drama.
Right, with the sci-fi element, but yeah, definitely pitched older.
Somebody could do in a Star Wars universe. You look at something like Father Figures, the silly comedy, you could do that in a Star Wars universe. But here's the one that I really, you know, in the action comedy, Jumanji, totally doable in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Here's the one that I think, Pitch Perfect 3 and Greatest Showman.
The Star Wars musical? I'm in.
Right?
Sure, why not?
You know the song, right?
Why?
We already got the song.
If they should borrow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Look, I've said this before. I want the superhero musical. I want the superhero My Dinner with Andre. Like, if you're gonna
My Dinner with Deadpool.
If you're gonna put capes on everything, then like let's mix it up a little. You know,
awesome.
We'll see how that goes.
All right. Well, so stay tuned, because as soon as they release a Star Wars musical, Alonso and I will be here. It'll be amazing. Thank you for joining us at this box office report, and we'll have more news for you throughout the day.